I'm ready.
I'd like to call this commission meeting to order. Thank you for attending. The first, we're bumping some things around on the agenda, but we're kind of including them all. So the first item is that we're going to hear a proclamation, National Public Works Week. And I believe Commissioner Moore is going to read that.
Yeah, Public Works Week again. Yay! Okay, this is a City of Shelton proclamation. Whereas the American Public Works Association has declared the week of May 15th through 21st, 2016 as National Public Works Week and has set the theme of Public Works Always There. And whereas the City of Shelton recognizes that public works services provided in our community are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, and that Public Works Department's recent significant achievements is indeed following with the theme of Public Works Always There. Whereas the health, safety, and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, and construction, is vitally dependent upon the efforts and skill of Public Works staff. And whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel of Public Works is materially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the important work they perform. Now, therefore, the City Commission of the City of Shelton, Washington, in conjunction with the American Public Works Association, has hereby proclaimed the week of May 15th through 21st, 2016 as Public Works Week and calls upon citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works and to recognize the contributions which public works officials make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. Signed this 9th day of May 2016. Yay,
All right.
Public Works.
Yeah, yay for Public Works. We need to, I think, probably request a motion on this, and so to officially, authorize this into the record or whatever.
I make a motion to accept the City of Shelton proclamation, Public Works There, Always There, for the week of 15th through the 21st of May, 2016.
I second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we proclaimed it.
Yay.
All right, next is we're going to have another appointment to a different position in our city, and I'm going to let our management assistant, Vicki Look, explain what that is.
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. I have put the appointment of an interim city clerk on the agenda today because I will be leaving after Friday. And so I would request that you appoint Wendy Thompson as the interim city clerk. Leslie Ann will continue to support your commission activities, but the city clerk also has many other duties that include receiving claims and lawsuits for the city of Shelton and the ADA coordinator and et cetera. And Wendy is our full-time person taking care of ADA and things like that as assistant to the HR manager. So I would ask that you place this appointment on the consent agenda for next Monday.
Any questions or comments concerning this issue?
One comment, I think she'll do a great job.
I'm sure she will.
Yes.
I know she will do a great
Yep.
job.
Yeah, I should say I know she will.
There you go.
Okay.
It's not an easy shoes to fill, as we know. So I will place this, I guess you want this placed on a consent agenda for next week.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
I think we concur on that.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is our weekly commission reports. And usually I'm used to doing it this way when I'm sitting in the other room. So I think we just stay with tradition and we'll let Commissioner Moore go first.
Okay. First of all, last weekend, I really enjoyed the plant sale, the opening day of that Shelton Farmers Market. And I believe that I can't remember what they called it. Downtown Flea Market was a big success. It was great to see all the people out and about, and it couldn't have been a more perfect day. And of course, Mother's Day was grand. So this week, of course, the meeting today. Tomorrow, I'm excited to attend a workshop in Renton with Steve Goins entitled For the Love of Cities. And I think that'll be very worthwhile. On Thursday, we will be having a going away reception for Vicki Look from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. I hope you'll all come for that. Vicki's been a very amazing employee and an integral part of the relationships that we all have with the city here. So that's my week.
Thank you very much. Commissioner McDowell?
I'm leaving tomorrow morning for a left board conference at Lake Chelan till it's Wednesday and Thursday, and then I'll be back Friday. And Saturday, I am going to be involved with the Choice High School Street Carnival at 5 o'clock down by Choice High School. So if you can all come, it's lots of fun, and support the Choice kids. And I won't say I'm sad because I always say I'm sad, but I'm not going to be here Thursday to say goodbye to you. So you better be in the office till like 5 on Friday so I can give you a goodbye hug.
I will be here.
Okay, thank you. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Tomorrow, Tuesday, I'll be attending a MACECOM board meeting. Wednesday, I will be attending a Economic Development Council roundtable discussion at the PUD. I'll also be attending an after hours on Wednesday evening at the Rocco Coffee Shop over here. Thursday, I'll be doing a ribbon cutting and a staff briefing, and also I will try and get in. Hopefully they're going to have, I like chocolate cake. I don't know. Did you already figure what you're going to have?
They didn't ask my opinion.
They didn't ask your opinion on what to have at your party? Well, I like the chocolate cakes the best, but whatever it is, it's not about the cake, remember.
It's not your
about
party
something.
too
Right.
either, Gary.
I know it's not my party. I'm just saying I kind of like chocolate cake. I mean, it's okay to say things
I
like that.
like chocolate cake.
Okay,
I'm
so
hoping there will be wine.
How about carrot is good also?
carrot cake's nice. Well, we look forward to these. We don't look forward to the event. We look forward to what we get there. So
Thank
anyway, okay, that's Thursday, ribbon cutting, and then that concludes our weekly commission reports. Next is one opportunity for general public comments. So if we have somebody that's signed in, maybe Steve could read.
Folks signed in.
Yeah, you want to read the names?
Conley Watson's first.
Mr. Mayor, Chairman, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Conley Watson. I live at 140 East Fox Lane. And why I chose to speak today is I read Thursday's paper by Mrs. Thompson on the museum potential game changer. And it made me stop and think, what do we have that's going to draw the public here other than the railroad? We don't have a place, we don't have a hotel for them people to stay in, a campsite, or a good place to eat. And which got me thinking about Willits, California. And they had the skunk line in there. And I think it would behoove you to write Willits, California in lieu of the skunk line, because it goes from Willits to the west coast. And another draw in there is that you have lots of motels and good places to eat. You got the Redwood Forest, the Siskiyous, and you've got Monterey. You've got all kinds of drawing in there, and we don't have that here, and that kind of worries me. We're going to spend between $7 million and $30 million, and I thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Next is Marilyn Vogler.
Marilyn Vogler, 420 East Poplar. We have just proclaimed National Public Works Week. We were told the safety and effectiveness of our facilities, as well as their planning, design, and construction, are vitally dependent upon the efforts and skill of our public works staff, and we've been called on to recognize the contributions which they make. I would like to offer particular recognition for the creative, forward-thinking plan for handling Shelton's solid waste that was developed by Craig Gregory and his staff and presented to you all on April 25. It's a fine example of the planning we recognized in the proclamation. It was comprehensive. It was extended over 6 months. They were looking for efficiency and keeping rates down, and it went through lots of work and lots of drafts, we were told. Not only that, the recycling plan offers advantages over what we're currently doing. We'll have only one container, and so it will save staff time in having to educate us about which container we put what in. We'll be moving to commercial recycling, which I've advocated for a long time. We'll be able to recycle plastic bags, the bane of our current system. And so it's a fine plan. I've heard talk, on the other hand, of privatization. This is a shoot-from-the-hip reaction. It may save the city a few dollars in the short run, but the negatives outweigh the potential benefits. If it's in private hands, the city can't control the rates or rate increases that the ratepayers pay. The city loses autonomy in having to go out for a bid. We lose some control over a say in what's collected, how often it's collected, and where it goes. There's a loss of potential income to the city cited by Craig in his report from cardboard recycling and the roll-off box program. And though it may be small because the staff is small, there's also the potential loss of jobs, loss of the dedicated people that we're recognizing next week. This is not a time for shoot from the hip, oh, solid waste is struggling, oh, we're in the red, let's privatize garbage and recycling. The theme of Public Works Week, public works, always there. This can't be said of a private vendor. So in recognition of how vitally dependent we are on our public works staff, I hope you'll strike privatization from your list of potential alternatives for solid waste and adopt the comprehensive, forward-thinking plan that was presented to you end of April that promises long-term efficiency and long-term stable rates for the citizens of Shelton. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Last is Charles Orthman.
My name is Charles Orthman. I'm a Great View resident, and today I wanted to come in and, I don't know, poke a little fun with Commissioner Moore. I saw you pictured in the paper recently in a dispatch office down on the Simpson waterfront, and you're talking about a roundhouse museum, and I have an engine that would look really nice in that roundhouse museum if you're interested. Have you shown this picture around, Steve?
Yes.
Yeah? Have you seen it?
Let me see it again.
Yeah. I'll tell you a little bit about this. This is a Simpson engine that I discovered back a year ago, February, when I was working up in Tacoma. It's currently in the LeMay family collection, and according to the history of the engine, it was operated out of the McCleary door plant. The engineer was a Lee Willis. He was a 45-year employee of the Simpson McCleary door plant, and that engine traveled back and forth between McCleary and Shelton for quite some time, bringing logs one way and doors the other. So when I spotted that a year ago February, I thought, boy, that'd really be nice having that thing down here where it belongs. And then when I read about your roundhouse museum idea, I'm thinking, oh boy, it kind of reminds me of when I was a kid and had a train set. You have to have all the right pieces, they have to match, they have to go together, and when it goes around in a circle like that, it gets boring after a while. But that over the hill and through the woods thing sounds like a pretty good idea. So I want to encourage you to keep up the spirit on that. I think that's a great idea.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. That
No
it?
more speakers.
There'll be another opportunity later in the meeting for more general public comment. All right, are we ready for reading of the consent agenda?
Yes.
Yes. Could we please have a
Yes.
reading of the consent agenda?
Consent agenda. Number 1, historical research contract, authorize the mayor to sign.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion to accept the consent agenda for May 9th, 2016.
I second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda passes. Moving right along, there is an item under old business, and it's Ford that wants to escape.
Mayor, Commissioners, I brought this last week, but I didn't have the financial information that Kathy provided me. We have an opportunity to buy an 09 Ford Escape through our PUD 3. It's a very nice little vehicle. It will do us a lot of good service. They're only wanting $2,400 and 24 to 27 and 15 cents for the vehicle, and we feel it's a very good value, and will be perfect for around town doing what we need to do from time to time. So with that, we're hoping to purchase it with the unassigned general fund revenue, and I have more information in my office should you request it, but it's a very nice vehicle. We'd like to add it to our engineering fleet.
Now, there is, because this is an action item, there is an opportunity for any public comment on the purchase of this Ford Escape, and you should tell the price, and then nobody will get up and talk about it. Price is only, did you, 2,000 something?
Yeah, $2,400.
Missed my mind on that one. Okay, yeah, very affordable. So if there's anybody who'd like to speak from the public, now is the opportunity. Seeing none, any questions or comments about the Ford Escape?
Is this going to replace an existing vehicle, or is this in addition to the ones that we have?
We salvaged, well, we didn't salvage. Steve took the keys of our Crown Victoria, and so we were thinking of looking for something, and then we were out actually looking at the bucket truck that we were told about, and saw this one sitting there, and got the price, and it looked like a really, good value. So it kind of will be replacing our Crown Victoria. I think Craig may drive it for a while. We have kind of several vehicles that are needing to move on, and this is probably the first one in the bunch. So
So what did Steve do with the keys?
no.
Why did you take the keys so no one would drive
They're in
it?
my pocket.
Well, generally,
Yeah, they're right here, see?
I would never encourage replacing a Crown Vicky with a Ford Escape, but in this case, the price is right, and I think it's an excellent move, much better than a brand new $30,000 or $40,000 rig, so I think it sounds good to me. So if we all concur that this is a good purchase, I would request a motion.
No more lowrider. I move that we authorize the purchase of the 2009 Ford Escape from PUD 3 and authorize the city administrator to make any necessary budget modifications.
I second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number F under new business is Mr. Goines, I think, is going to talk to us about our comprehensive plan and UGA expansion alternative.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. For the past several months, we've been discussing various aspects of our comprehensive plan update, mostly focused on the text amendments, if you will, the parts that we're trying to update as part of the larger periodic update. What we have today is a discussion of the map amendment side of this. There's a proposal in two areas of the vicinity of Shelton to include lands into our urban growth area boundary. I have with me today Erica Rett from Burke Consulting, and we have a brief PowerPoint presentation that will sort of give you an overview of the alternative analysis and describe these areas in some detail. With that, I think I'll turn it over to Erica.
Should I turn the light off?
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, for having me here today. My name is Erica Rett with Burke Consulting. And so Steve talked a little bit about our project, which is updating the comprehensive plan, including the map amendments for two areas of the urban growth urban growth area. And part of what we're doing is, as we look at the map amendments and the text amendments as a whole, we'll be doing an environmental impact statement to make sure that we fully understand the impacts of the changes that we're proposing to make. So here's the map. It shows the Shelton city limits in the dark boundary and the urban growth area in the dashed boundary. There's two areas that we're proposing to add. The first is up in the northeast corner. You can see a red box. That is the Dayton Airport Road Commercial Industrial Center. And the idea there would be to create a new employment center. Down in the southwestern corner, you have the Goldsboro Heights study area, and that would be a residential area there. The other thing is that with the environmental impact statement, we'll also consider whether or not to use a planned action ordinance for the development of these new expansion areas if you were to approve them. So we held a scoping meeting for the environmental impact statement. It was held April 6th, right in the middle of the scoping period. During that process, the public, including other government agencies, could make comments on the EIS and what would go into it, such as what issues we would look at, what kind of alternatives we would study, what the impacts and mitigation could be for those alternatives. And out of that scoping meeting, we're proposing 3 alternatives. The first alternative is the one that we're required to do under SEPA law, which is to look at what happens if we don't make any changes. And so that's a pretty standard alternative. The second has to do with the Goldsboro Heights study area. And in both alternatives, there's a few things that we're planning on keeping the same if we were to expand the urban growth area to this study area. First of all, the expansion would be about 325 acres. Development would be limited to the uplands area. So you can see on the map, there's the blue line of Goldsboro Creek, and then there's a significant amount of hillside to the north of Goldsboro Creek. All of that area would be set aside in permanent conservation, and the development would happen just on the uplands. That would set aside about 200 of that 325 acres into permanent conservation. If we take, I went one too far. And you can see there's just roughly the area that would be set aside for conservation there. And then in Dayton Airport Road area, we'd be looking at creating an employment area with an expansion of the urban growth area by about 600 acres. It would be a mix of industrial and commercial uses would be proposed. And about 60 acres, approximately in that location, would be set aside for a permanent conservation area for the headwaters of the North Fork of Goldsboro Creek there. So given that those things will stay the same in both alternatives, let's take a look at alternative 2. For the Goldsboro Heights area, we're looking at a residential expansion that would be pretty similar to what's already been proposed in the Shelton Hills Master Plan, which is immediately adjacent to the north. For the Dayton Airport Road, we would propose a primary business activity center. This builds off the proposal in the economic development element of the comprehensive plan that would designate some primary business activities to spur employment and investment in the city. Those uses that would be supported there would be tourism and hospitality, information technology, life sciences, food production, and wood products. In terms of the tourism and hospitality, there's an opportunity there for a small complex that would include a hotel and other services that would support the Ridge Motorsports Park and the activity that happens there, and then some of the other uses or some of the other visitors that come to the city for uses along Dayton Airport Road or just visiting Shelton in general, as our first speaker talked about. So this is a really vague concept, but if you or it's a very general concept, I should say. If you look at the Goldsboro Heights expansion, we would have the 200 acres set aside for conservation. There would be most likely an extension of the Village Green, which is proposed in the Shelton Heights Master Plan that you see in the northwest corner of that study area. There would be a variety of maybe townhomes or cottages that were right on the green, a little bit of space that was set aside for institutional uses or commercial uses, probably about 5 acres over the area. And then the rest of the area would be split between about 20 acres for small lot single-family uses of about 8 or so units per acre, and then larger lot single-family uses would be the rest of it at about quarter-acre lots. In total, that alternative would be looking at the addition of 375 new households within the urban growth area there. Along Dayton Airport Road, in the first alternative, we would expand it to create the primary business activities area. And what you see there is the set aside for conservation. In this alternative, we're proposing to keep a rural-urban buffer of about 200 feet that would run along the northern boundary of the area. That would make, as this area fully developed and there was a lot more urban, industrial, and commercial activity, that would help create a nice buffer between the rural area to the north. The property to the south is in forest land, so that provides its own type of a buffer there to the south. In alternative 3, we have some different alternatives there. In the Goldsboro Heights area, we'd be looking at possibly adding a golf course, the potential of a golf course there with single-family housing and flats. And in Dayton Airport Road area, it would be a split between commercial and industrial zoning. And so let's take a look at Goldsboro Heights in concept here. After we have the conservation area set aside, the largest area of the remaining 125 acres would be about 75 acres for an executive golf course. Now, an executive golf course can be a variety of things. It could be an 18-hole golf course that that was primarily 3-par holes. It could also be a 9-hole golf course that had more like 4-par holes and probably more than one tee location, so someone could play through twice and have a different experience the first time through and the second time through. But about 75 acres for a golf course. There would be some small lot single-family housing located along the golf course. And then near the Village Green area, there would be a cluster of flats. And in the Shelton Hills Master Plan, just northeast of the Village Green, there's also a planned commercial area, so that the flats would round out that node within that development as a whole. This alternative would be looking at an increase of about 325 housing units. In Dayton Airport Road, commercial industrial area, we would be looking at a 40-acre area set aside for commercial uses. That would potentially be a tourist hospitality area in this alternative as well. North of Dayton Airport Road would be a mix between, or would be a commercial industrial zoning, which currently allows a lot of large format commercial uses or big box uses, and also light and medium industrial activity. South of Dayton Airport Road, it would be designated for industrial development, and that supports light, medium, and heavy industrial development. So we know that as we study these alternatives, we're going to cover a number of topics. In this presentation, I underlined the, topics that were discussed either in our scoping meeting or we saw in some of the comment letters that the city received. And so in the EIS, we'll look at earth, topics related to changes in the earth, including looking at hazards, soils, critical areas, and wetlands. We'll look at surface and groundwater resources, stormwater, effects on Goldsboro Creek, and also the critical aquifer recharge areas. We'll be looking at plants and animals, in all ways, environmental health, including potential contamination of soil or groundwater, contributions of the alternatives to changes in air quality or greenhouse gases. In terms of land use, we'll be looking at the change in uses between urban and rural uses, how intense the development will be, and how compatible the uses will be with what's around them. We'll look at how this affects plans and policies, including land and employment capacity, aesthetics, including the conversion of forested lands and views from public spaces, transportation and traffic for all modes, safety, access, circulation, and volumes, and then public service and utilities. How do these alternatives affect the current plans? Are there fiscal impacts and effects on fire service and special districts? So in our planned action, our review is going to consider whether or not a planned action considers whether or not to allow a streamlined environmental review process for development in these areas. If you were to allow a planned action for one or both of these areas, anyone who had a project that was consistent with the policies and codes that were studied in the EIS wouldn't undergo a project-level environmental review. Instead, they would be subject to the mitigation measures that are identified in the EIS. So the timeline for completing this project, we're right in the middle of it right now. We are hoping to publish a draft EIS in July, and there would be a public comment period there, including some public hearings that happened in the fall. We would take the fall to continue our study with the final EIS, and then we would bring it back to you for adoption. And at that time, we'd be looking at the City Commission to consider action on the following items. The updates to the comprehensive plan that Steve's been working on with you, the expansion of the UGA in both the study areas we talked about today, the adoption of the planned action ordinances, and then any related amendments that would happen to the Shelton Municipal Code to make the things that you want to adopt happen. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Of course, Steve is your contact.
I have one question.
Yes.
Would the parks be considered part of the conservation area?
No, in the Goldsboro Heights Alternative 2, there would be a series of pocket parks that would be located throughout the single-family areas.
Okay.
That would be
So
separate.
the conservation area, what would that be?
It would probably, at this time, we're thinking it would be a set-aside to protect the steep slopes and the buffer of the creek.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions or comment? No, not from the public now. We got to follow the rules, so you hold your comments
I have one more question.
for a moment. Yeah, just for a moment. Hold your comment for a moment, then we'll figure out how we can slide you in.
So
Sorry.
how big would these parks be?
So there's not a strict proposal for how big the parks would be. It would be looking at, if the village green was about 5 acres and there were 10 acres of parks, they would likely be just real small neighborhood parks of 1 acre, 2 acres.
Okay, all right.
Marie, would you like to speak about this issue? If you would, you have to sign in, and we'd love to hear what you have to say.
What did you say?
You could sign in if you wanted. Did you want to speak to this issue? You
I
can't?
have a question to ask.
Okay, well, we can't do questions from the public. We've got our
I'm
rules
sorry.
and regulations and the
Well,
policies, so.
I just moved here.
Yeah, you didn't either. You've been here a while, but you'd be happy to ask the question, but you just gotta sign in, is all
Okay,
you
where
gotta
do I
do.
sign in at?
Right here, you gotta sign this shit right there. There you go, just sign your name there, and we will give you time to ask
I
your
don't know
question.
him.
That's Steve Goins.
Okay, my name?
That information was very, very good.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, very,
Very
very,
good.
very good.
I'm in
I'm sorry,
Shelton.
did you have any comments before Marie?
No.
Okay.
My question is, who owns all this land that you're talking about?
You want me to answer that? I can answer that.
Well,
I thought Hall Equity.
yeah, well, okay, let's stop with the question. We'll ask, Steve, I think you could probably let everybody know who owns that property.
The area that's adjacent to the Shelton Hills development is entirely owned by Green Diamond Resources. The Dayton Airport Road commercial industrial area has a handful of owners. Primarily, the land is in a Hunter family holding. I think there's a number of family members that are on the title to that, and there's a couple other small property owners in that area.
Okay. Thank you. That answer your question, okay?
Well, is there water and electricity over there?
I think we have a water line that runs right out to that one area right
Oh,
there.
the
so,
water's there?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's what we did. Thank you. Infrastructure. All right. Any more questions for this young lady right here? Thank you very much for coming and talking to us, okay?
Thank you for having me.
All right, very good. So, Steve, what would we like to do at this point?
If you have any comments on the alternatives, please provide them to me as soon as you can. We're trying to finalize how we're going to approach the alternative study as we try to stay on schedule and move forward.
Thank you very much. All right. Next is a fuel system purchase, and that's going to be Ms. Greg Clark's going to talk to us about that. Item number 2.
Mayor, Commissioners, we have had a fuel system down at our shop that is 1970s vintage. It actually runs on DOS operating system, is very, very limited in what it can do. The key cards are beyond old. And it's really important that we track fuel accurately and have the ability to the new system that we're requesting to purchase is in alignment with the budget that was approved for this year. It is a couple $1,000s more than what was in the budget, but of course we were estimating when we did the budget process. The system we went out and talked to several vendors. Both systems that looked the best to us, this ACE tank and the mascot equipment, were all on the National Joint Powers Association, which is kind of like the state contract, except it's nationally. It's pre-bid, and anyway, the vendors came and talked to us. The system that we've selected we'd like to purchase is called the ACE tank, and it is a automative information module type of system where you actually put something on the vehicle and it transmits a lot of information electronically to the system when you load up your gas. It takes mileage, it takes information in that on the vehicle itself, maintenance schedule, all these things. This is a very similar system to what the PUD3 has. We talked to them. We also went up to Arlington and talked specifically to the city of Arlington that has the system. They were the only other ones locally that we could talk to. Everybody said that they were very, very pleased with the system. And so our recommendation is that we move forward and purchase this off of the NJPA contract and move forward in upgrading our system. Is my understanding it's going to be compatible with Tyler, and so we should be able to download this information and have a very accurate fuel system. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
So is the one we have right now just totally inefficient? Are you losing money on it?
We can't even hardly use it. I mean, it's non-upgradable. It's 1970s type of computer language DOS system, and there's no way to automate it. It's just, it's run its useful life.
I have heard complaints from other departments about that
Yeah,
system.
The police department was also involved with our
That's the
selection.
people I heard from.
Yeah.
Well, any other questions or comments about this?
What's the other one? You said mascot?
Yes, the second one that we looked at.
Is that similar to this one?
It's similar, but this one had more features and more things that we thought we could take advantage of. And
Very much of a difference of cost?
no, they were right
Okay.
neck and neck, actually.
So actually, you're getting a little bit more for cost, the same cost, basically? Okay.
Okay, I guess if we concur that this is a purchase that needs to be purchased to upgrade our equipment, then I guess if we concur on that,
Yes.
then I think it's proper to consent to this and authorize the city administrator to make the necessary budget modifications. Thank you. Thank you. All right, item number 3 is website records software budget modifications, and that will be presented by a gentleman named Tim. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. We, as a city, approved and set aside for the budget of a website redesign and support, ongoing support for a website, and for records management software back in 2014. And we are here today requesting that the funds get carried forward and that you would authorize the administrator to make the necessary budget modifications for those funds to go to good use for this year.
Any questions or comments for Tim?
I have none.
I have none. Sounds, cost of doing business, Tim. So I think we will approve this. We concur, and we will follow your recommendations to place this on the consent agenda for May 16th, 2016, authorizing the city administrator to make the necessary budget modifications.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving right along to item number 4, and this is another Public Works budget modification.
Thank you, Mayor. In the spirit of budget modifications, it's that time of year, and Kathy, our finance manager, has talked to me about all of our utility funds, which we all need to do a little bit of adjusting on. In short, the water fund, we would like to move some of the monies that were identified for IDC that didn't get used for IDC, and therefore, by not moving those dollars or moving them back, the budget is balanced, and so we request that the $115,000 in the IDC move back into the general fund budget to cover operating expenses. We don't need all that much, but that's the amount that Kathy indicated we needed to move. Under the sewer fund, there's roughly about $246,000 worth of IDC that could move back and support the operations side of the budget, and so we're requesting that. Storm fund, we had $100,000 that needed to move back from IDC back to the fund. And then in our solid waste fund, there was a little more increase in cost at the landfill for tonnages and that we didn't anticipate, and so we're requesting that that money be moved from the fund balance to cover those operating costs. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions and request your approval to make these budget modifications.
I think for the benefit of the audience here, that maybe explain what IDC is.
Oh, those are indirect charges, which really are charges that cover the costs of internal staff and that to facilitate processing and working with all these utilities, from everything from billing to budget management to purchasing and so on and so forth.
Thank you. I just saw some question marks overhead. So.
Yeah.
So I also would just like to comment that this is part of closing out last year's funds. It's a housekeeping, basically. So nothing unusual. Those are my only comments.
I had a question concerning Basin 3 project. It says that the delay caused a change in the amount of IDC that was needed to be transferred to the capital by $193,000. So
Yes, sir.
that's not an overrun. What's that 193? How's that?
What we do, and all of these are very consistent, Mayor, they are capital projects that we anticipated possibly getting to in the calendar year of 15.
I see, we're just moving it over to the next.
We needed $193,000 worth of IDC money to
Right.
administer that project should it have gone forward. Because it did not go forward, we can move it back, and that helps us balance the budget.
Thank you very much. That was the only question that I had. Any other questions? Hearing none, it appears that we concur that this is a good thing to do. And what we will do is place this on the consent agenda for May 16, 2016, authorizing the city administrator to make the necessary budget modifications. I'm sorry, I said that on the last one, but it looks like I can say it on this one too. Okay. All right, back to my fine print. Okay, we have a police contract, hooray, and Vicki Look will present this item on, still on another Ford Escape. Is it a different Ford Escape? Am I reading the right
Did I
thing?
put the wrong thing there?
Oh, probably. It says, Vicki Luck will present this 2009 Ford Escape purchase.
Oh.
So that has nothing to do with it, right?
No.
But just in my defense, it was in my little notes. So what I'll do, I'm going to scratch this one because I said police contract. What are we doing with that Ford Escape
Yeah.
on that one? So that's all right. You know what? I'm going to scratch this and go back to just letting Vicki Look take care of this.
Maybe we're giving the Crown Vic to the police.
There you go.
What it took to make
Yeah.
the deal. There you go.
Okay, well, we had a police contract that was expired December 31st of 2015, and we had started negotiations last summer for a new contract, and we've reached an agreement, and the following are some of the, really essentially the financial impacts that was agreed upon. And effective May 1st, agreed was a 2% cost of living adjustment. And for 2017, January 1st, a 3% cost of living. Signing bonus of $750 payable with the May payroll. Deferred comp match increased to 6.2. This actually matches up with the rest of the city employees. And really the 6.2 match is in place of Social Security that the city does not participate in. They increase in an annual clothing allowance to $1,250, and that's payable in July with the July payroll. Generally, it's paid in two different installments, one at the first part of the year and then one in the July payroll. In looking at the police department comps, we have a select few cities that we believe is comparable due to population size, the economy of the cities and things like that. We have 6 or 7 that we had agreed upon that were comparable, and this brings us a little closer in alignment with those cities that are our comparable cities, and so we did reach an agreement, and so I bring it forward for ratification. This is not a surprise. I know we've discussed the labor negotiations in sessions, and I requested that it be approved today and ratified by the commission so that payroll has enough time to get all these changes in place before the May payroll is processed toward the end of this month. So if you have any questions.
I will say that this is one of the jobs that Vicki Look has done for the city for a number of years, and I've seen her work. We don't give raises to anybody. I mean, you got to pull it out of us. We all talk and talk and talk and talk, and so she's done an excellent job, and this is the best deal we could all get at this point in time, and I just say I think you did a great job. I watched you in the negotiations, and I'm starting to cry. Oh, don't cry. I mean, but we will be missing that, especially that talent that you have. And so that's my only question. Our comment was just that you did a great job on this, and I have no problem sending this forward. So,
Thank you very much.
Any other comments? Okay, if the commission concurs, I need to request a motion.
I'll try and make a motion. I move that we accept the police contract for 2016-2017, presented by Management as Assistant Vicki Look.
I second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That passes. Yes,
Years ago,
before your hand went up, sorry.
years ago, we had actually a consultant that used to come in and help us negotiate contracts. Along with many other things, when we started into the recession and started having less and less money to be able to do things, we needed to find ways to economize. And what Vicki said she would do is, says, well, I'll do this myself. I'll step up and
Nice job.
negotiate.
Little did I know.
Little did you know.
It's very challenging to do this, very time consuming. This is probably the best negotiations that we've had with the police department. They're always difficult, the best one that we've had. And and I think a lot of the credit for, as you said earlier, goes to Vicki
Yeah.
for her good work. Also, a lot of credit goes to the police department for being willing, the police department, police union, for being willing to settle rather than take it clear to arbitration or near arbitration through mediation. So you never get what you want. What we wanted was nothing.
Yeah.
But that wasn't realistic. And so what we ended up with, I think, is as good as we could get for both sides. So I'd say thanks to Vicki and congratulations for getting it done before you left. Thanks
you.
for doing that too.
And I do want to acknowledge that Chief Moody sat in on the negotiations with me, and he helped smooth the way through this as well.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. And now, under administration report, we have another Mountain View Pressure Zone paper here. And Greg Clark, I think you're going to talk to us about
You're
this.
just popular today.
I am, yeah.
Yeah.
Today's my day.
Today's your day.
I passed out before the meeting started a two-page legal-sized document here with some of the key points that we had an overview last week at our evening meeting, and questions from the commission came up regarding, this phase 2 construction opportunity that's closing in on us here. What if we were to hold or freeze the rates for a year? How would that impact our ability to move forward on these projects? And so we went back and ran the financial model, and it looked like by not collecting rates from our citizens, just holding what they are in 16 through the calendar year of 17, that the fund would be down about $54,000. But that particular amount of money did not seem like it would upset the apple cart, so to speak, with regard to debt service payments or other related costs. It's less than it would be without that, but we feel we could live with that certainly, and the cash balance changes a little bit in future years, but doesn't really get any worse than the $54,000 in 17. So hopefully that answered your question with regard to freezing the rates for a year. I just wanted to real briefly hit the key points that we shared last week, the importance of replacing well 1. And I actually included on the second page a copy out of the Carollo report that we passed out that was a lengthy document that was the water modeling efforts that were done by a consultant to identify, the importance of our system and kind of the critical things that are in front of us here with regard to water supply. Last year, as you know, during the summer months, we experienced well 1 actually failing as the pumps ran. It was unable to recover, and so our concern is certainly providing our citizens with good water. This particular well 1 is about 75 years old, and it's just run its service life. And so our request is, of course, to replace that well, and it goes a long ways in providing water. And referring to that second sheet in table 1.3, that first column for 17 shows if we did not add well 1, or what they're calling well 5, which is the new well 1, if you didn't have that in the system, you can see that our capacity need is 2,200 gallons per minute. Using the redundant capacity, which is if you take the biggest well that is providing water offline, how does your system perform? That would be well 4 that would come off of line, and just living with well 3, you can see that we can't even provide the average daily demand for our city. So it is a pretty critical replacement for us. If we actually get into the maximum daily demand, which is during the summer months where you're doing the watering and that of your lawns and other things that take more water during the summer, we're way upside down. We're almost 1,700 gallons out of alignment with what we need to provide. So please consider that in your decision. The second point of this Phase 2 is to create a new ground level reservoir and booster pump station. That's about $3.8 million worth of work. What it does is it solves our storage deficiency. It provides storage for the Upper Mountain View pressure zone, which occurs right now. We only have the single new tank up there, which actually isn't even online yet. But once it comes online, that would be the only way to pressurize that Upper Mountain View zone, is with that existing tank. And if something should go wrong up there, we wouldn't have any redundancy to provide water to Upper Mountain View. So the booster pump station, which is part of that ground reservoir system, is part of this $3.8 million, and so that provides storage not only for Mountain View pressure zone, but also the redundancy to provide water and pressure for Upper Mountain View. The last point of the Phase 2 work that needs to be done is we want to provide reliable water service for all our customers, not only the ones that we have now, but future customers. And part of that water modeling effort was to specifically look at Sierra Pacific Industries as they move into town and what our abilities are to provide them water. And of course, with the installation of both the ground level reservoir and that booster pump station, we would be able to provide for the water flow necessary for both them and for our Shelton Hills project, should it come on board. So the only other piece I'm just going to touch on is the importance of maybe taking advantage of the loan that has been offered to us through the Department of Health. It is a 1% interest loan, and the details of that is it's a 20-year loan. If we pay debt service on that loan, it's going to cost us $510,000 in interest. And as you stack that up against the next part of the discussion here, just remember that number. The total cost of taking advantage of that loan is $510,000. The debt service payments on that loan would be $260,000 a year. If we delay construction, we can typically think that on the average, annually, construction costs go up 3 to 4% a year. So let's take the 3%. It would basically, that project would cost us an additional almost $600,000 a year if we waited 4 years to do the project. And the loss of that 1% money, as I mentioned, if we wait 4 years to move the project forward, the cost of the project would go up to roughly $5.2 million, and the debt service payments on a 3% loan, because that's probably the interest rate we'd get in the future if we don't take advantage of this 1%, would be roughly $360,000 a year for 20 years instead of the $260,000, and the debt service payments would be almost $1.8 million compared to the $510,000 that if we took advantage of that loan today. So with that, I'm going to leave it in the commissioners' hands as to how they want us to proceed. We as staff, we have this thing coming off the design. We should try and get it on the street and advertise it. My strongest recommendation would be let's put it on the street and see what prices we do get once we go out to add. And the commission will have one more chance to make a decision on choices on the alternates and that on this particular thing. But we'd like to go to add.
First, I would like to say that I'd like to commend you and Mike Michaels for continuing to come forward and give us the best information you can and explaining this in a very thorough and professional manner, and that it is a big decision to make. It's a big decision to make. I have had a change of heart over the past 4 or 5 days. I've asked 10 people, and Dave O'Leary was one of them, and I've talked to well drillers, I've talked to engineers, I've talked to and I believe that we have to address the well number one issue. Let me come on and say, we have to address that. Okay? That standalone issue, the well number one issue, I am very much into looking at other options, all options, other than 1.3 million. Okay? And however that might look, I mean, I just know that we unfortunately, there's always something coming around next month or next year that we've got to do, we've got to take advantage of, and that's got us to the 60 million or whatever in debt. It's got us to 300,000 of last year reserves and all that stuff. So this is a very big decision. Okay, I am open to try and look at that well number one. Unfortunately, my stance is the same as it's been for the past couple of years on the phase two. I'm very sorry. My opinion is about the missed opportunities. But if you take that train of thought and you bring it to what we've done with Basin 3, okay? Basin 3 was $1.3 million grant versus 6 point whatever or 5 point whatever in loan. And we've continued to work with the Department of Ecology. We've worked with our senators over here and our representatives in the Capitol. We've got another grant. We're about ready, hopefully, to get another grant. I'm back in negotiations with the Department of Ecology again. It's a long-term thing, but literally, I'm hoping that we won't pay anything out of the ratepayers' money to get that basin. It's a project that I think we're going in that direction. So certain things can be done without jumping on these things, and I'm just in not a big mood to borrow a lot of money. A well down is something we seriously need to look at, and I am open to the possibility of options. I have some that I've talked about and stuff, and so that's kind of how I feel. I've been consistent over the past few years, and I just trying to stop the city from continuing to borrow money, especially for future infrastructure, until it catches up. Just the way I'm, nothing personal, but I just cannot see the city going too much farther in debt until we get some of this stuff online and we start making some money back. So best I can say my position today. But I did change on the well thing, so you never know. You keep talking to me.
Well, that was extremely confusing. I wasn't sure if we were talking sewer or water for a while.
I was using
there.
sewer as an example.
Yeah.
Let me defend myself. I was using a sewer example of a way that we could have easily jumped in to borrowing $5 million that we didn't have to borrow.
No, that was clear. No,
that
it
was clear.
Okay, thank you for the new information. I think it really, illustrates really well the need to move forward.
You don't need a decision today. We're going to take this home and think about it.
The only thing we would request, we don't need anything really, because the commission actually last year made the decision to allow us to go to design and to put this project, to design it. We're just at a point where we want to put it out to advertise the project and to get bids on phase two, which then will give us hard numbers. Right now, we're living on estimates of, the replacing of well one. We estimate at 1.3. If we go out to add, we'll actually get contractors to bid on it, and we'll actually know what we could go to construction with as far as the true cost.
Sure, and to be clear, with my memory on this issue, we did approve the whole $9 million project last year, but we were always going to come back to the phase two to see where we were financially on whether or not we were going to approve that. So before you go out to bids on things, I mean, that's what I'm saying, is I would not support the $4 million on phase two. I personally would not do that.
4.699.
Yeah, so a lot of millions. So what I'm trying to say to you basically is that however we need to make that decision, we allow this commission to take a look at this and vote on that. So I don't want to put out for bids unless we are going to go forward. Is that, or you just get the bids whether we go forward or not?
We can get the bids whether you approve the contract to go out on the bids. is another call, another decision on your part whether you sign the contract. What we're probably going to be breaking up Phase 2 into 2 contracts, one for the well, because it's a different type of contractor than would be building the land use, the ground level reservoir and the booster pump station. So our plan is to go out to bid on well 1, replacement, which will be well 5, and we'll get bids on that, and then you'll be able to make a decision whether or not we want to move forward with that. We also will get bids on the reservoir and the booster pump station, which then the commission can make a decision on whether they want to move forward on that. So going out to add doesn't commit you at all to signing the contracts.
I will be talking in depth on Thursday with our city administrator about this issue, whether he wants to or not. Yes.
Did you want to make a comment?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I had another question, but Kathy hasn't
Well-
said anything.
Can you tell me the cost of drilling the well and then all the bells and whistles that go with that well?
I believe drilling the well was right around 350, 400,000, something like that.
350, I believe it was. The remaining 900,000 was the accessories to put the well online. Part of the reason we want to do the well as a separate contract early is there's a potential savings in the ground reservoir for some currently anticipated treatment that we believe we may need, but based on the hydrogeologic report, we could find is not necessary once the well is drilled and we test the actual water from the new drill well location.
And how deep do you go on that well?
That well is about 750 feet deep, matching approximately the current well. The prices are based on that depth. There is a slim chance that because the current well is actually open to 2 aquifers, one at about 250 feet, the other one down closer to the 750 foot level, there's a slim chance that we're actually getting our water from the upper aquifer. And so the drilling method that was chosen by our consultant will allow us to test whether it's in the shallower or the deeper aquifer. If it is in the shallower aquifer, then we can cut the costs of the well drilling significantly by stopping at that point.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so getting back to the top of page 1, when we were talking about the possibility of freezing the rate increases for 1 year. So is there, at the end of that time, would we increase the rates to make up for that? Or can we take 1 year off and then continue on with our expected rate increases?
The commission approved a rate increase of 3% for
2 years, 4% for 4 years.
Just want to make sure I'm right. I believe it was for 15 and 16 was 3% annually. And then in 17, we went to 4%, and 4% was every year thereafter. So to answer your question, what we do is we had the 3% last year, the 3% this year. We'd hold our current rate right now that's in place for 16 all the way through 17, and then in January of 18, we would go back to the 4% every following year.
Oh, okay.
So we just take a year off and hold a flat line, holding the 16 rates currently through 17.
Okay, so in that case, it would just be putting off the 1% increase for an additional year, and then we would be on schedule.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. O'Leary, did you have a question?
Just had a question for Greg, and as you and I talked, I think it's really important to build a well. I think we'll run a very high probability that we're going to run ourselves out of water if we don't build well number 1. I mean, that's really what all this tells us. But as it relates to the tank phase 2, if before you go out to bid, do you believe that not having a definitive statement from the commissioners that they're going to build a project, will that undermine our ability to get good bid prices? I mean, if I'm a contractor and I'm saying, boy, do I want to spend a lot of time putting together this package when they may kick out all of them, is that really a good message?
Well, it's not the best message. There may be certain contractors that would decide not to go through the effort, because it does take a lot of work as a contractor to put together a bid. On the other hand, we've kind of heard, that the commission is kind of mixed feelings on whether or not they're going to move forward with the entire Phase 2, which includes not only the well, but also the tank and the booster pump station. I don't know. I mean,
Mike?
they would be more confident should the commission kind of feel that their thought is that they would move forward with all of Phase 2. That would be the best message to get the best opportunities for all bidders to look at it.
Mike, one of the problems with well 1, and one of the reasons that the tank was designed the way that it was designed, is in order to take some of the sands and the sulfur smell out of the design, out of the water, so you can use it just like all the other water in the city.
That's absolutely correct.
But if you find that you've got cleaner water as a result of drilling the well, you aren't going to need to spend the money to take sulfur smell out if there's no sulfur smell associated with well number 5.
That's true, and that's exactly the testing we need to do in the new well location to confirm whether that's there or not.
So how does that timing work as it relates to the construction of the tank? How long after you drill the well, the new well number 5, are you going to need until you're going to know how you want to design the tank?
That's going to be fairly quickly. Currently, we're designing the tank with those treatment features in it.
So one way or the other. So
right.
You've got an option.
Yeah.
You can just click on or off depending on what you find.
Yep, exactly. They're separate line items. There's 2 components in there. There's an aeration component in the tank itself for the hydrogen sulfide, and then there's a sand separator that's on the pipeline right after it comes out of the well. If neither of those or either of those is not needed, we can eliminate the associated bid items if we're that far along in that piece of the contracting.
Okay, forgive me for jumping in on that.
This is an important issue, yeah.
We had a lot of discussion on this, and sometimes when you get to the end of it, you've still got something that hadn't occurred to you before. So.
The other question I would have on this, is it not possible to drill the well, get the well set up with basic plumbing that we could somehow access to in an emergency situation, and the following year put in the more deluxe plumbing? The following year, could we not phase this out so that financially the city doesn't take even the $1.3 million hit all at once? Does all of that stuff, all the bells and whistles, if you want to call them, does that all have to be in right at that moment? Or can we not drill the well, test the well, have ability to access some water in case of an emergency, and then the next year we add on this, and the next year, just like you're remodeling a house, sometimes you build one room at a time.
I'll parlay to Mike.
Okay? I know it might not be perfect, but guess what? We got money that we're dealing with here.
I suppose technically you could. Given the nature of the depth of the well and the different alternatives we're talking about here, it would not be a very cost or resource efficient way to do it. Mainly because the pump sizing is different depending on where you're going to send the water. Upper Mountain View compared to anywhere else in our system. So you have some pretty huge expenses that probably would get thrown away in a year or two. Pumps of this size for this deep a well are several $100,000.
They're big.
They're big.
And the casing, is that like 1 foot or 2 foot? Or
It's
18
the primary
inches?
casing is 12-inch, which is exactly the size that's there now. Basically, it's a three-step casing existing. That's what the consultant has proposed as well. It's a 12-inch primary casing with a 16-inch upper section and a 20-inch very top section for the final access point. That's based on a couple different things. The depth of the well, primarily that in conjunction with how much right we have on that well. We're allowed to pull 1,500 gallons a minute out of it, so you can imagine that requires a pretty good sized pump down in there. And right now the pump actually mounts to the end of a 10-inch discharge pipe to meet that 15 gallon a minute, or 1,500 gallon a minute. production rate, so.
All right, any more discussion on this issue?
I was just going to say too, Mayor, anytime that you have to mobilize a contractor to bring them on site, it usually costs you several $1,000s, if not more, to bring them back out, so to speak, and build a phase 2 of a system or a phase 3 of a system. So
If we had money, none of this it'd be a slam dunk for you, man. I just tell you, if we had money, if we were, but we are right now pulling out of a recession. That's where we are. So life safety is important. So that's why I asked the question, could we not drill the well and have a mechanism, we could access the water if we're in an emergency situation and adding on the other pumps. If you're remodeling a house, it wouldn't be the cost and all that you're talking about. Or working on a car. You can buy the starter next week, buy the generator or whatever today, or the battery. I mean, it doesn't quite work like what you're talking about. So that's why I asked the question. But, okay, we'll think about this. Welcome. More to Okay, so I guess we are at a point now for another general public comment. Anybody would like to say something? Now would be an opportunity.
No, I got more to administrative report.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah,
sorry. That's right. Turn it over to you. I seen that right there. Okay.
No, it's not touches yet. It's
Okay,
just,
yeah.
it's just the administration report. Sorry. I have more resignation, another resignation to announce. Kathy Byerly, our finance director, has resigned effective May 31st. And so now we have another department head to replace. So I have some thoughts on that. Anyway, I'll be formulating those within the next few days. So anyway, that's all I had to say.
Okay. Now is the general public comment period. You have to sign in. The paper's on the end of the table right over there. Just state your name for the record, please.
Mike Olson. With Dave's recent announcement, I've yet to see any updates from the commission on Dave's replacement. Now that we have Dave to replace, Vicki to replace, and Kathy to replace, what's going on? You said at the beginning we'd get monthly updates. I haven't heard one.
Be happy to give them today to you, Mike.
Okay.
We can do that. We're moving right along. Let's take a moment to answer that question. So, Vicki, look, you want to answer that?
Yes, I still am working on Dave's replacement with the Brockman Company. And in fact, they have interviewed several people and made a recommendation. We actually met this morning with the commission and Prothman's Bill McDonald, who is the recruiter that is involved with this particular recruitment. And we have selected 6 applicants that will be in the process. There will be a public reception on June 8th with interview panels, such as we did with the chief's interview, scheduled for June 9th. And so we're right on target with that schedule that we presented, or I presented back in, I believe it was maybe February or something like that. So we do have candidates that they are reaching out to. We're not at liberty to announce who they are yet. They've got to get back and get in contact with those individuals. And then we will be providing a press release.
My other question is on an interim one. Is there still that consideration, or is that not going to happen?
We are, yes, negotiating with for an interim.
And when would that happen? Before
Well,
Dave leaves?
Before Dave leaves.
Probably within the next week or two, yes.
Okay.
There would be an announcement on that.
Hopefully, yes.
And is that a public process also, or is that just an in-house to
The
select the
commission will
interim?
select that person,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, next, Conley, right? You want to speak for a little while?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I owe you and the commissioners a big apology. From reading the paper last Thursday, you get the impression, or at least I got the impression, that the railroad was a done deal. You have bigger fish to fry, my friend, on well
You think
one and everything else you're talking about. The rest of this was daydreaming.
You know, I'll do the little injection thing here, okay? I am all for the roundhouse. I want it to happen, and as Shelton grows, if we can do the method, there are methods to save that project and work on that project. There's all kinds of ways, and Commissioner Moore is doing an excellent job with that. So hopefully, but we do have some fish that we kind of got to fry kind of quick, you know, so. Sure.
I would like to give just a quick update on that as well, is that I am expecting a proposal from a company that I have been dealing with, a proposal for an industrial use inside the roundhouse that would be leasing from the city if we are able to acquire the roundhouse. It is dependent that we also get the rails and that the rails outside the cities remain in place as well.
You must understand too, also the paper talked about railroad. That's got the railroad tracks on it. And another thing is Annette McGee, when they closed the county fairgrounds, she had all of that material in there that was used for donkey logging and stuff, and they were looking for a place to store that. You've got a problem, my dear.
We can do it.
I am up to the challenge.
Yes, we can do it. Thank you. All right, anyone else like to jump in on the general public comment? Seeing none at the moment, we turn this over for administration final touches. No touches. Our next meeting will be Monday, May 16th at 6 p.m. in the evening. This meeting is adjourned.